Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Happy Tuesday morning. We've got another episode of the practice for you today. Big episode number 36. And I think we've got something fun in store for you today. You can check out the little sketch we got going on here. Firing up the chat. Everything's set up. But yeah, you'd see this sort of three-piece, a triptych, if you will, of smiling, goofy, mountainous landscape heads. I think it's really cool, some of the new features of Instagram and how you can upload several images at once into sort of one slideshow. So what I want to do here is try making an image that will divide evenly into three parts. And then we can upload them and have them look like one continuous piece of artwork. So that's going to be what's on tap for today. And I'm super excited about this one, so I'm going to keep the intro brief. Like I always say, love the activity in the chat. Love hearing what you guys are working on. If you guys want to share some work, send a link. I can even pull that up in the stream. We could talk briefly about maybe challenges you're facing and things you're working on. You could do a little show and tell if you like. And yeah, otherwise feel free to ask questions and get some banter going. But in the meantime, got our sketch reference ready, and we're gonna just really hop right in there. So, first things first, establish a little bit of a ground and really get some of our basic forms into shape. If you guys have tuned in before, you've probably seen some of this stuff. Each time is new and fun and interesting. Boom. The other thing we want to do is probably get our basic shapes into place and have them kind of be in thirds, right? This guy a little bit bigger. Let's just start with pencils, as usual. So that one's at 0. Let's find a spot over here. Just even out. So let's call this one 250. This one negative 250. Boom. And all of a sudden we've got evenly spaced assets, right? Ahmad, what's up? Thanks for joining us today, man. How you doing? We're gonna be working on a fun little triptych today. Got our sketch all ready to reference. Starting to set up some of these basic forms. What I think I want to do now is actually drop the camera and get our point of view nailed down. Zeroing out these values. Flip back. Right, so there's the basics, really. Oh, trash truck is outside. Hopefully you can't hear that. Pick the greatest time for my stream. It's super convenient schedule-wise, but it's at the time that the trash truck shows up outside every week, so that's pretty dope. And I don't think I'm going to have all these three shapes end up as primitives in the final piece, or as capsules rather in the final piece, but using that to sort of get our camera view locked in. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit further. Oh, I'm going to start building out the additional landscape items around this. So it's going to be a fairly simple, streamlined image this week. Glad you like them, Ahmad. Thanks for tuning in. So yeah, I mean, my favorite thing, right? Uh, Using landscape primitives and capsules and other really simple shapes to start forming a solid composition. I really do enjoy landscapes. I'm not sure where that comes from. My mom is actually a really talented painter, and she does a lot of landscapes. So perhaps there's that influence going on. The other thing it could be is, I just absolutely love getting outside and hiking and jogging and enjoying the outdoors and camping and stuff like that. And I'm sure that has an influence on it as well. I love. I do. I'm also sort of interested in plants as well. So I have a little succulent collection. I love going over to the botanical gardens and checking out what they've got going on and doing sort of the local trees and landscape and everything like that. So I think that's probably one of the things that really fuels my constant love of making stuff like this. I think there's something like sort of timelessly beautiful about interesting and beautiful landscapes. Then I also like these really simple reductive character faces too. So who knows? Who knows? What I might do actually too is make the middle one like slightly higher. Let's get that triangular shape in there. Let's see, four-sider. I'm going to lock this camera position before I mess around. Screw it up, because that's what I do. Turn the camera off, because who cares? So let's grab this. I'm just going to expand it and make it editable immediately. So let's treat this bad boy. Nice and round. We still have those really pointing edges, right? So what I'm going to do is go to mesh, spline, chamfer, nice rounded edge on that. A lot nicer. I'm going to go with those cutie pie faces a little bit better. Make them a little bit deeper. But then I'm also going to throw them in a connect because I'll show you an example. So what happens is you always get this sort of extrude shape. So you pretty much, as far as I can tell, you always get this sort of hard line in between your caps, your edges, and your roundings, your bevels here. But if you throw it in a connect object, it smooths that out. Makes it look a lot nicer, in my opinion. I'm going to turn this down to 0.05. Boom. So now we got a nice, lovely shape. What do we think? Middle guy for triangle? No. I'm gonna go against the sketch a little bit here. I'm going to triangle to the right. What I also think I'm going to do is I realize that I want to have 3 square format images when it comes to the final piece. So I need to set that proportion up in the camera, or in the render settings rather. Let's check that out. Get rid of that guy. Actually, let's do this. Make sure that was right in the exact well, it doesn't look right. Let's go with that. Okay. So I'll put so 300 by 100 is our aspect ratio. I'm going to lock that and we'll just multiply it by 2 for now. We'll probably go up to like maybe 3,000 by 1,000 for the final output. As you can see, that really quite dramatically changes the amount of real estate we have for each of these, right? So, locked camera, can't move it. That's a good thing usually, but now I grab that tag and pull it off. I actually do want to zoom in a little bit more. Try to make each of these elements a little bit smaller. Really, the goal here is to have 3 individual square format images generated from this one final rendering. That's why you can see I made the width of the image 3 times as wide as the height. So that should render, 3 to 1. There we have it. So with this guy, I think I want to do sort of a big sort of shape. So let's check this out. -250. Whoop. Regular 250. This may seem like kind of the boring part, we're just looking at a bunch of gray primitives right now, but setting these basics up is really important. It's going to go a long way in the final quality of the image, of course. So recognize. I do want to get some rounding on this cube shape. I'm not sure the best way to do that at this point. I wasn't loving what that hypernerve was giving me, so I think what I might try is so want to subdivide them up. It's feeling pretty good. I think we can actually go further. Nope. Oops. Great. So really, there's our basics. And then what I can even do now, let's make sure we've got our placement right. So what I'm actually going to do, let's do a double check. So I'm going to save this out into test. Now if we open this in Photoshop, let's see how everything centers up. It's actually going to be handy dandy because I think we're on rule of thirds for the crop tool. It's not showing it. There's our 3 square format images, actually. And it looks like, obviously the central one is dead center on. These ones both look like they need to get out a little bit, right? They're not quite centered. So, go back in here. I'm glad we checked. So I'm going to call this 270. 270. One feels a little too far, so I'm going to cheat that in just a little bit. And let's try that one more time. It's fast. Save as. Okay. Test. Save. Replace. Being cautious. It would suck to get everything right, just in terms of the composition, and then realize that your stuff isn't really lined up well. That would be a bummer. So these aren't dead on. So I think that's actually pretty good, because what will wind up happening is, like, pretty much this will be one image, this will be one image, this will be another separate image. So we're really doing a triptych here, but I want everything to be perfect, and I want these breaks in between to be seamless, regardless of the sort of detail that's going on there. So this is good. I think I'm going to live with this for now. Let's see. Still just a mod in the chat. That's cool. All right. So I'm going to make each of these a hair smaller again, though, too. So we think now, let's add a few more of these. Not even block. Landscape. Cube. These guys, the faces. Oh, that's interesting. I've never put a protection tag on a group of objects before, so it looks like you can still actually move the children, just not the group, which is kind of cool. All right, so out. Now for these little compositional elements, I don't think we need quite as much geometry, certainly for the height. So, rough some of these guys. See, since I do all of my work and rendering off of this laptop, well, you can see I'm always just trying to optimize for poly count, things like that. You see, I don't use a lot of reflections or things that wind up being really, resource intensive. This is a decent little laptop. I've got an okay graphics card in it, but I can certainly feel the weight of some of the models sometimes. So I always try to optimize for that. But like I always say, you don't need the craziest rendering settings and all that stuff to make a really high quality image. There's artists out there doing amazing stuff with just colored pencils, crayons, whatever, right? So it's about the image itself and not necessarily the image making tools. And I just love using digital tools to make images, but it doesn't always need to be, in my opinion, super glossy, fancy ass high end renderings. I'm a simplicity guy in a lot of ways. Hey Candy, good morning to you. Thanks for coming by. I appreciate it. How you been? Working on anything cool these days? I'm thinking about, as part of these streams, and I'm not sure if you guys caught this in the intro, but it might be cool to do a little bit of a show and tell, kind of segment, every week. Maybe you guys could just, you have, a Tumblr account or Twitter account, whatever. Shoot me a link to the image you're working on, or to whatever your project is, and maybe we can, critique it or offer sort of live recommendations. Check it out. You could maybe let us know if there's something that's kind of tricky that you're running into roadblocks, or something that you discovered while making it that was really cool. Whatever. Just sharing is cool, and I think the more we build up a little bit of a community, I think the better off we'll be for everybody. So there you go. Holler. Struggling with motivation, eh? The character modeling can be difficult. It can be complicated. There can be a lot of steps. Are you rigging and texturing it and doing all like soup to nuts full character design? Got it. Yeah, it can be tricky. Motivation. Gosh, I wish I could had some words of wisdom for you there. Did you do sketches and everything like that first? Do you have a clear plan of attack? And sometimes a good way to get motivated too is really just take a little break. Unless you're under like a killer deadline, sometimes just put it down for an afternoon or a couple days or something like that. Go for a walk. Get out of the house. You know, watch a movie you love. Don't procrastinate now, but step away from it for a minute. Sometimes you stare at something for so long and you can't like look at it for what it is anymore. You need to step away and you know take a moment, rest your eyes, perhaps. Stuff. So you can see here I'm building in these little details like I love to do. Not sure if we'll get into any plants or just keep it sort of landscapey, kind of hilly and bumpy. This is my jam. Let's see what we got. Right, getting there. Let's throw some basic lighting in. And for landscape things, for outdoor scenes, my go-to lately has been the physical sky. Um, it really does a pretty good job quite quickly. You can add this fog too, which I might do, which is quite nice. Let's get a little bit more resolution on this. So 12 noon's not going to give us really any shadows. A little later in the day. Let's just see that. Get a shadow going. I try a little bit of specular today. Normally I just kill the specular outright, but just throw like a hair on it, keep it tasteful. I'm not always a huge fan of that super waxy look you get from really strong specular highlight. But if we push that way down, see what it does for us. I'm just gonna throw that on real. Better already, right? Another landscape. What's up, Søren? Okay, hold on. Let me get back to this chat stuff. Yes, what camera you use for the 360 VR stuff on Cinema 4D? So I don't have a proper camera. I've been thinking about investing in the Cineversity VR cam, which is really great because they also offer like built-in stereoscopic output, so you can have like a left eye, right eye separate animation to give you a much more convincing, realistic 3D effect. I've been doing it the super old school, low budget way, which is I basically just take a sphere, put a pure reflection material on it, so it's 100% reflective, and then you can add a reflection, a bake. What is it called? Let me see here. Basically, just add Cinema 4D tag. Where is it? Bake text. Where is it? Bake texture tag right here, and add that. You go in here and you option, you hit bake, right? I'm not going to these obviously, but there's tutorials available online. It's a fairly old school way of doing it. I've been thinking about, and maybe if I get the right client project and I can build this cost into the project, I'm gonna spend I think it's like $300 or something like that for the proper Cineversity VR cam, which I hear is really quite cool. Cool. So I'm gonna take a mod up on this link. Let's see what you got here, mod. Oh, not that. Oh, cool, dude. Looking good. That must have taken forever. Good stuff, man. Cool. I like this one in particular. That's your strongest, I think. All the way from Prague. Cool shit, man. All right, so I think it might be time to add a few faces. Oops. I lied. I'm going to bring a few of these forward first. A little foreground action, right? Because strong landscapes, I think, frequently have, a middle, a fore, and a background. Sort of lead your eye back into the composition. It's just even little tiny simple details in the foreground can add a whole ton. Give you a sense of scale, sense of perspective. That's why I spent a lot of time really on these images, just kind of pushing and pulling, getting stuff in place, and even just the way, like, these two spheres have this landscape rolling in between them. Those two capsules, I should say. Breaks it up, adds interest, right? Why does a big hilly landscape look so cool? It's just hills, right? But it's the way the things interact and rest against each other and look really great. So, biggity bam. 3 hours each, huh? Yeah, I bet. I bet. There's a difference between physical sky and sky. I'm not sure exactly, to be honest. I don't know if the normal sky object offers. Yeah, so the normal sky object doesn't offer these cool like daylight settings. So the physical sky, which I imagine they call it physical because it also works on like the physical lighting workflow, whatever that is. I don't know a ton about it, but there's a way to use what they call like physical lighting. Let me see if I can remember this correctly. Um, there's like a higher gamma um, image output range. And I'm not sure how to use it exactly, but there is a way to get sort of a different light and color quality out of images, which is called sort of the physical workflow. I'm sure you could Google around and find some tutorials, find someone who knows what the hell they're talking about to fill you in more on that. But the physical sky, beyond that lighting workflow, also has all these great options. Like you can like change the time, and it'll give you more realistic lighting based on the time of day. So like if you turn it to noon, of like overhead lighting. You can also like track the sun's location based on where you are. You can like put in an actual area of the world, and it'll have lighting similar to that. And then you can do even crazier stuff. Like you can add clouds. These look kind of cheesy sometimes. You can see them just added in now. And some of these options add a lot to your render times. I don't particularly love these clouds, but it gives you a little tab, and there's all these details you can go through and adjust these shaders. It's kind of neat. One of the things I do really like is, let's see if we can find it here, where we basics. I'm going to turn clouds off. The fog looks really cool. You have to see here. So this is a 83. What I'm going to do is turn the fog up a bit. This is going to die. And that I'll just start lower. And turn the density lower. I'm actually going to make this material darker so you can see it a little better. See how that works. We're getting fog in there. So yeah, you can see how there's a ton of fog, right? What gives you a lot of perspective. In fact, that's pretty cool. I might wind up using it for this render, for this piece today. You can see that it shows sort of the perspective because it adds this diffuse sort of foggy fill in between the foreground and the background. And like, it's funny, I was just talking about how creating that sense of depth is what makes a landscape look really cool sometimes. So yeah, let me turn this down actually. Turn it down. Turn it down. Some blue to it. Let's reach for that. So we got much more subtle, especially with the darkness of this. So anyway, so that's the physical sky. It's very cool. Hello there. How to change the color of the sky? I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about. So the physical sky, I'm using the time and location, which will automatically color the sky based on the time of the day, and some semblance of realism there. It's not super realistic, but I'm actually, for this landscape, I'm actually good with this color range. What you could do is you could turn, let's see here. Interesting, they have load sky presets too. Try that. How about that? There's some options for you. Yeah, isn't that neat? That foggy effect. It looks really cool. You can fine tune that as well to to get the amount of depth that you want. And actually, I'll be sharing it recently. I'm working on a collaborative piece with this really cool 3D artist, and I'm creating like a forest scene. And I added a bunch of fog in there. It really gives you a lot of depth with the trees going back. It's really neat. Um, so, so cinema examples sometimes worse. So what if you need a pink sky? So I would just actually add, I would use not a physical sky. So I'm using a physical sky here. I'm going to turn that preset off because I don't want an orange sky either. So if you want a pink sky, what I would do, I'll show you real quick. And I want to get back to the image soon here. I don't want to turn this in. It's just a long example showing tutorial. But just grab your regular sky. Here's your sky. Make a luminant material. Pink sky. Oop. That's color, not luminance. Make sure it's in your luminance channel, right? Add that to your sky. Render. There's your pink sky. Cool. Do all that. And I'm going to add faces to these guys. It's time. All right, there we are. Alrighty. First things first. Put this polygon hole. Get it down a little bit. Smile, big smile. I think this face is too large overall, actually. Some of these proportions. Fun. Thanks, sir. So, oops, not in there. This. Here's this guys. So I'm just going to copy that. I'm just copying, pasting the position rotation parameters. Make this a little easier on myself. Then I'm just going to drop that bool right in where the capsule is. Boom. New face. Boom. It's funny, I lied a little bit about not using specularity and reflection. I think the one place where it works really well and actually makes them pop and differentiates them from the background in a nice way, I think, is throwing them on little spheres that you use for eyes. Because then that gives you sort of a glossy, wet-looking, sort of reflective eyeball, which can be nice. So let's group these and call them blocky, blocky, capsule. This guy, you're going to get a face soon too. So let's copy it out. Now what I could probably do is just go into coordinates and copy paste this whole set of parameters, but I'm not doing that right now. I just need the rotation and the left and right position. The rest of the stuff I'll adjust by hand. So let's see. Does it? I bet that has something to do with position of the actual geometry inside of this connect like this. Pull it out of the hierarchy. Nope, that made it worse. Whatever, I'm just gonna do this by hand, you guys. Screw it. I don't mind. We'll probably sort of line it up. So I'm going to use the grid to my advantage in that regard. And you can see right here and right here. Those are symmetrical. So that's fairly in the center. Do a similar tactic here. Let's look at this point versus this point versus this point. So that's going to be close enough for this. You know, if I was building like product design and needed to be dead on with my measurements, that'd be one thing. But I'm not. I'm making cutie pies for Instagram. So there you go. All right, so how do the faces look? Is that triangle too short, or is it nice to have some variety in height? I don't know. those weird round numbers. There we go. A little bigger. Yeah, rain would look cool. For sure. I'm not, this face is a little bit too far into the shadow, so what I'm actually going to do is just a little bit of a cheat. I'm just going to rotate this physical sky a bit. See what that gets us, because I like seeing long visible shadows. Those look great, but I don't want that guy to be too shaded, so that actually is pretty well for me. Awesome. Let's keep pushing it. Pushing it. Let's call this guy Triangle. Clever names, right? I also think I want to add teeth. Let's add teeth to these dorks. I'm going to do this the super fast lazy way today, so I don't even care. First, I'm going to turn that down, though. A lot of times I use a cloner or something like that, or a symmetry to get teeth in there. But today, I want them to be asymmetrical, non-symmetrical. So I'm just going to place them by hand, which is fun. That's cute. Good deal. Them in with capsule-y, because that's where they belong. Let's give Blocky some teeth. Again, I'm just going to place these by hand. You do it mathematically, but whatever. Not today. Not today. Everyone's going to have slightly different teeth, just like in real life. Weird. All right, let's check out my dentistry work. Oh, cutie pie. Yep, baby face. They're just growing their teeth in. Nice. All right, let's keep building out the landscape a little bit more. That's what I think we need next. Landscapey bits. I think I want to use, I rarely use these. I sketch these a lot, but I rarely use them. I'm going to make kind of a little rainbow shape. I'm not even sure how to describe this. Triple donut, maybe. Triple donut. Ah, rainbow if you want it, but donut, triple donut. These guys are going to get a different color. Probably different. Subtle, subtle. Oh. That's difficult. Yeah, typically speaking, that is probably way too dense a mesh for this kind of thing, especially with the Fong tag up. Um, a lot of times you'll be just fine on rounded elements like this with a little bit less geometry. I'm going to let it ride because I think this will wind up being a fairly low poly piece. I love how the YouTube chat's always full up. Well, full up, participants. And then the Twitch one is always just kind of empty, totally empty, lacking participation. You do. But I guess, I've only done maybe, 5 or 8 episodes on Twitch, whereas and many more on YouTube. So these things take time, right? Be patient while I'm saying. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to make a version of this that has some noise on it. That's going to look dope. Supply. Let's see. It's fun to look back to and see the progress, right? Look at that. I build it up slowly, you know? Do it a little bit taller. Same with this guy. Just want to make it a little taller. There we go. I think the foreground is lacking a little bit. Maybe we'll make some simple grasses or something like that to populate front with. I think the texture is too big on this. That. I'll show a little bit of variation in color on some of these hills. Would be good. See what we got there. Let's try this. Sort of physical. And a little ambient occlusion. That's going to help. It's going to help us. Let's see what it does to render times too. Ah, nice. See, when you throw in the physical render, you can see the aliasing is a little better, like automatically. See that? Of course, the shadows were added because of the ambient occlusion, but some of the shadows look a little nicer when you put on that physical renderer. Let's compare timing. It's actually faster. If you've got one of the newer releases of Cinema, sometimes check out this this physical renderer. It'd be pretty nice. Look, I got to mind where my foreground line actually is. It's a little bit tough to see it, but these guys obviously aren't even in the composition. Keep that in mind. All the little details. Hey, Freud. What's up, Chris? Thank you very much. Appreciate you stopping by and appreciate you making a nice comment about the landscapes. I've been really enjoying making them lately, so it's good to hear that they're appreciated on the other side. Here are our little friends for the day. And what I'm actually working on, I don't know if how many of you caught this in the intro portion, but what I'm going to be doing is making use of Instagram's new like sort of slideshow feature. So what I've got here is 3 separate images that I'm going to stitch. I'm going to, after I'm done rendering them, I'm going to cut them into 3 square format images and then upload them, and then they will be sort of a seamless kind of slideshow. So that'll be going up later this afternoon when we finish up this image. So if you're not following on Instagram, hit me up at Diligence, DLGNCE, just like the YouTube moniker, and you'll be able to check it out then. So I'm going to throw on global illumination and see if that makes a big difference. It might not on something like this, especially if we've only got one light. We don't have a lot of effects going on. But I'm gonna see what we get. We might like it a little better. It's definitely gonna add some render time. Makes the image lighter overall. Yeah, I think I'm feeling it. And for 4 seconds of difference on a file size or on a file this size, it's really not bad. So cool. I'm going to do a save as. I'm going to start breaking some of this stuff up a little bit. So let's find this guy. Some stripes to him. Yeah, I'm liking that already, even without rendering it. Getting some darks in here is going to be super helpful. All right. Oops. Yeah, starting to make progress. There's something this simple. As soon as you start getting in those little details, they can start going a long way for sure. Like that sort of bluish color as well. Hmm. Yeah, I do think I need like a little grassy sort of texture. So I'm gonna make something like that. I'm gonna make it really simple too. So bear witness. So one by one, all corner. Oops. There we go. Finally. Look at that. And there we go. Throw random on it. Cool. So I think that's going to do it pretty much. Let's get a little bit more space. So there's our grass. Add a whole bunch of these. Ah, big grass. Wondering, yeah, I think I'll make a new sort of more saturated green color. Nice vibrant grass. And actually make this a little easier on myself and just texture the group that they're all going to live inside of. So what's great about this is if the grasses are looking too similar, I can always just add or subtract a few cloners and um, add or subtract a few in the cloner and adjust some of the parameters. And we've got this random on it, so we can rotate and tweak it around, and I think each of them will feel fairly different. So now we're just populating them, looking for sort of a sense of balance. We want to apply them sort of evenly throughout and mix them in with the existing shapes so that they look good, they feel right. This is the type of skill I think it can take a while to develop. Um, having a sense of what a strong composition is and how you want to arrange things isn't something that happens overnight. So again, right, like the practice. That's what we're doing. developing our eye, we're working to improve our skills. Um, Got to show up and keep putting an effort out, and that's the way we improve. So, that applies to everyone. If you're a grizzled veteran, likely the way you got there, if you have any success, is through practice and through, obviously a bit of luck as well, but you got to show up and keep putting that effort out. And, even, it applies to things even beyond artists, obviously. If you want to be a great basketball player, practice. You got to show to practice. Don't be Allen Iverson. Show to practice. What is it? I think it was Oscar Wilde who said something like, uh, I can only work and write when the muse strikes. Luckily for me, it strikes every day at 9 a.m., right? So I probably butchered that quote to a certain extent, but the idea is there. The idea that, you know, inspiration is a fleeting thing, and you got to show up. You got to be ready to work when the muse shows up. Um, there's a lot of great quotes like that, actually, from various writers and intellects throughout the world and throughout the years. Trying to think of another one. What was it? Was it Hemingway? Someone please correct me on these quotes, but there's another one where it's like, inspiration is for amateurs. Professionals just show up and get working. Something like that. There's like a whole book that deals on this topic that a lot of people have recommended. It's called the War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. It's a pretty quick read. It's really really good for any artists out there. I highly recommend. Actually, for any creative professionals, anyone. I don't know, man. I think the book really could be useful for anyone. To be honest, it's kind of a clever play on the words from the Art of War, which is that old Sun Tzu book, which is like the oldest military tactics book I think around, and this one is called the War of Art, which is a play on that. Yeah, it's about breaking through what Pressfield calls resistance, which is like basically anything, any emotion or activity or mental state or anything that gets in the way of us producing our best work. And it's like, it's all about how to break through that resistance and how to basically show up to work every day and kick ass, even though it's tough sometimes. All right. See how those grasses treated us. Yeah, see, even just those little details are really helping out a bit. And they contrast nicely with the really, most of what we've got going on here is these really curvilinear shapes, these really smooth, soft shapes. So it's helpful to have little pointy grasses sticking up, sort of interrupting those and providing a bit of interest. I think we need a bit more color variation, so this kind of stuff. Huh. That's a cool quote. Nice one, Chris. Yeah, I mean, emulating artists is good. I think that's where we all learn. I think everyone's got their influences, right? Um, what is the good artists steal, great artist wait, good artists borrow, great artists steal, that kind of a thing. Although I think that is a little bit of a misquote from Pablo Picasso, and I don't fully buy into that line of thinking. I do really believe that you wanna be creative and original to a certain extent in your work. Um, I also think that it depends upon sort of the point in your career you are. Like when I was a younger artist, I was borrowing from other artists a little more liberally. I hadn't really discovered my voice or really figured out exactly the type of things I wanted to make. And that comes with time, and it's okay, especially for young artists, to have influences and to emulate and be inspired by other artists. I do think though that it's important when you are in that phase of your career to at least just just be honest about who your influences are, because artists will a lot of artists will respect and acknowledge the fact that that's what they did too when they were younger, but you don't want to be an outright thief for sure. You gotta walk that line a little bit. I'm gonna kill the fog real quick and see if we do in fact want it. It's gonna give us cleaner color, but less of a sort of depthy feeling. Very subtle. Very subtle. The further you go back, you can see it definitely has an impact on color. It adds this sort of hazy fog filter. Right? So you got a lot more contrast and you got cleaner color. Let's try something. So fog back on. Turn it down this way. Turn down the intensity a little darker. All right. Give it another try. I'm just experimenting right now a little bit. See, that super blue color gets us. So what might be interesting, and some of you may have heard of atmospheric perspective, but the farther things are away from you, the lighter they get, and the bluer or purpler they appear. You may have heard the term "purple mountain's majesty." That actually comes from the fact that um, on the longer wavelength end of the visible light spectrum is purple and blue and all your cool colors, and because they have a longer wavelength, they actually travel further. So the reason that mountains appear blue is because if they're far away, the light reflecting from the sun that bounces back, the only portion of the visible light spectrum that will actually reach your eyes because of their ability to travel further is the bluer end of the spectrum, the purples and the blues. That's why things in the distance will appear cooler than they actually are. I'm a little bit surprised, speaking of coolness, that crazy blue color I just changed everything to didn't affect the rendering. in a more dramatic way. Same with this one. It's kind of interesting. You know, try one more without fog. I'm starting to think that as cool as it is, and while it's useful for certain applications, I think for this one we might want to stay with a more crisp, vibrant, colorful sort of look. I think, yeah, that might be where we land. Certain angles, it's so hard to grab certain edges of the widget. Like, having to get out of my camera view just for certain things like that, but gosh, sometimes it's inevitable. Change the angle of it a little bit there so that I can grab some of that stuff and reposition a little easier. I'm really, for this one, I'm really just kind of loading up on these capsules, really trying to get a lot of detail in there. Yeah, I think after killing that fog, I think really that's the way to go. We'll use that technique for other images down the line, sure. Any good music, Chris? I've been obsessed with the new Wildcat album. It's really funky and really, really cool. There's a lot of great tracks on it, particularly the track, what's it called? Oh, Them Changes. It's really cool. Been grooving on that pretty hard lately. Wildcat. The album is called Drunk. It's funny. It's got some cool, really cool, funky jams in there. It's got like sort of a good sense of humor, I think, to it somehow. Highly recommend. Highly recommend. I'm not feeling that change. Oops. There we go. Put in there. Oops. Do that. Later, Søren. Thanks for checking it out. And thank you, Candy. Yeah, it is a bit like Easter Island heads, right? Big monuments. We're getting there. I think just a little bit more detail over here, then maybe a few little doodads in the surrounding environment. Doodads. Doodads. Come on, where are you? You're dark for sure. Too much over there. Yes, Thundercat. What did I say? Did I say Wildcat? I always, for some reason, I always call him that. It's pathetic. Yes, Thundercat. Thundercat drunk. Them changes. Really, really good shit. I'm going to do another save as. I'm going to try something here that's a little bit of a change and may or may not. Let us see. Yeah, so I wish even that I could play a little bit of that music right now because it's quite good. But then YouTube has a problem with copyright infringement, which is fair enough because I can't be putting other people's work in my work for free. It doesn't work like that. Work, work, work. I'm just going to fit that into a sentence. Alright, so that looks good, but I think it is the wrong color. Let's try this, just a subtle difference. That foreground needed a little bit of interest, so I think that does help. Well, that begs the question, do we need some more striping in the background then to sort of lead your eye back? It's possible. That color change is better for sure. Getting close. Tides by Averone. Okay, cool. Always looking for good music suggestions. I'll have to check that out. All right, I think I know one last thing we should do. So 90, 39, 64. 90, 64. I'm going to fade out from this base color into something a little yellower, lighter. These guys actually. These two look like they're mapping well, and this one's going to need some love. So let's go flat. And better. To this. Really want it at the top. Yeah, I kind of like that, right? You see how it fades up gradually? Ooh, that's not good. So, all right, so let's give it a close look. Besides that fella's head, what else needs to change? Not a whole lot. I think I'm getting pretty close. Let's render a larger version of this. Well, let's do one more test, but we're gonna render a larger version of this, then go into Photoshop, clean it up a little bit, add a little bit of retouching, and get ready to split it into 3 pieces. You with me? Yeah, this it's so corny, but this stuff makes me happy, man. I just love making these wacky little landscapes. Hopefully that comes through in the work. Oh, that's wrong. Let's see here. Cool. Let's see if that maps better. Yeah, that's looking better. Okay. The stripes in the foreground really added a lot. You can add some detail into the sky in post. So yeah, so let's crank this. I think what I'm gonna do is 3,000 by 1,000, which should hopefully give us, I think it will give us a nice large image, which will work well on Instagram. All right, so let's make it happen. Off we go. Super high res. All right, all this coffee's running through me like crazy. While this is rendering out, I'm gonna run to the boys' room real quick. All right, sorry about that. It's like the image was faster than I was. All right. Ping. Ah, that's also much bigger too. So I was out for a cheat code. Just throw vibrance and saturation all the way up. God. All right. Now, in the past, I think using this tablet may have caused some like audio issues, just the way it loops in around the back of the computer. So please give a holler if that's the case. All right, cool. So this is one of my favorite parts recently of the workflow has been the paint over. Good times. Now, I think since we're quite close, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start trimming this thing. I think what we can do, let's look at these options here. $3,000 by 1,000. So I want each of these. Okay, so. Pixels, and do another one at 2,000 pixels. For anyone who didn't catch what I was doing there, what you can do, which is really great in Photoshop and actually all of Adobe Creative Suite programs, is just right-click on these rulers, hit Command R, bring the rulers up here, and then you can change by right-clicking on them, change them from inches to centimeters, pixels, to whatever you like. So boom. So there's our 3 images, right? So let's try this. Hopefully we'll be able to snap. We'll have. So this is 1,000 by 1,000. Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to save this as, I'm just going to call it 1. Save. This guy. Just double check. Oops, see 1,002 by 1,000. That's not right. So we'll hit enter. Sure we get away. Right, see it's not on that guide, which is annoying. So there's the 1 pixel. That there's another errant pixel on the other side too. Yep. 1,000 by 1,000. Cool. We'll call this one 2. Okay. Yep. 1,000. This will be 3. Yep. 3. Okay. Wow. Wow, and almost exactly 2 hours as well. That's pretty good. That's usually the time I shoot for. So 3 landscape friends, cutie pies in green, all said and done. So I'm going to be uploading these to Instagram probably in the next few hours here. So if you're not following me there, go check me out at DLGNCE, Boy Diligence on Instagram. And, you know, it's been a fun one, as always. I enjoy these quite a bit, especially these really simple geometric landscapes with a little bit of paint over, retouching in Photoshop. Love adding a little bit of grain. Love adding these cutie pie faces, and you know, I think one of the things I like most is sharing with all of you. So you know, it's been another great session, another great practice. Thanks for stopping by. If you like what you saw, if you found it useful at all, please share with a friend. Give us a like, give us a subscription, and we'll be back next week for more great action. So I'll see you then. Stuart out. Thank you.